Hello everybody, and welcome back to another production update video for the Star Wars Tabletop RPG series. I've got a lot of stuff to talk about before we get into what the heck all this is in the background. We'll get there. Trust me, it's amazing. But generally, we just have like three big things. The first is that we put a Patreon up, so we did start our Patreon from the last video that we were talking about. And you can find it at patreon.com/OSWguild. I'll put it in the description. But you can go there and support us, and the idea of it is that any money that we earn from that is going directly into the show, because it's going to cost about $3,000 to get all the equipment we need, which is 2 cameras, 2 proper microphones for that setup, a capture card for a PC to capture what the cameras are seeing, to then live stream out, and then we're not concerned about our internet, because the internet we're going to have Google Fiber, and it's going to be really nice when we start the show. Hopefully they get that installed by then in that area. And then on top of that, we need a better streaming PC to stream all of this stuff and encode it and record it. But we are, in fact, going to live stream it on a specific day. We haven't figured out the day for it yet. And we also haven't even figured out the name for this series. We'll get there. So if you have any ideas, let us know. So we're going to live stream it. It will go for 3 to 4 hours. And then that will be uploaded later that week onto YouTube in high quality in 2 parts. So that's how that'll all work. So the Patreon's there to help basically cover the production costs. And the faster we get that, the faster the series actually starts. And with that in mind, we're already like committed to putting our own money into that pool to get our equipment, especially the cameras, which not only will affect this series, but will affect the rest of the channel, because we'll be able to use those for other things, which is really nice. And we'll be able to actually use the live streaming stuff to do a proper live stream setup. But then any of the money going into this, first of all, is going into the series and anything that's affected by the series. So you're not directly supporting the channel, you're directly supporting the series. And like I said, we're pretty much already going to be putting our money into that, but anything that you can give, literally anything, helps take some of that pain away for putting our own money in, because it is a big, expensive amount. So with that, we have our Patreon up. Also, coming up soon, this is kind of like a prerequisite video to what's coming up soon, is we have, after we're done playing this Sunday, I'm going to talk with all of the players and introduce them to you guys. We're going to record something where you guys can kind of learn who each of the players are, what their characters are, and stuff like that. It'll be really fun. And then finally, Fantasy Flight has already sent us a few books. They're on their way at the time of recording this. And I want to do a few videos on them. I want to show you guys what the books are, because they're supplement books. So they're the ones that are coming are Lords of Nalhutta, Strongholds of the Resistance, and Keeping the Peace. So Lords of Nalhutta is an Edge of the Empire book. Strongholds of the Resistance is an Age of Rebellion book. And Keeping the Peace is a Force and Destiny book. So those are like the 3 supplements. They're all the same rule set. There's different stuff in there. But generally speaking, Edge of the Empire is kind of more like criminals and smugglers. Age of Rebellion is more like the Resistance, or not the Resistance, the Rebellion. And then Force and Destiny is more of the Force stuff. So we've gotten 3 supplements for that. We're actually using some of the stuff from Lords of Nalhutta already, which will be really cool. But I'm going to put up a video just kind of showing you those books and overviewing them, not reviewing them, because I don't think I'm qualified to review the books like that. And if you guys could watch that and just show the support on that, because then it then shows Fantasy Flight that you guys are interested in that stuff, and maybe we'll get some cooler stuff in the future. But this is what they're starting us out with, and I totally agree with those books for starting us out with, because they're amazing, and I know what's in them. And like I said, we're using some of the stuff in them anyway, so it's perfect. It's literally perfect. So let's get into talking about this. This is Roll20. This is the app that we use. It's a web app. You see, I'm in a browser, right? And with this, you're basically it's a digital tabletop. This right now, this map you're seeing, this is the player's ship. And I'll put the links in the description as well of where I got some of this stuff. But the ship is its own thing, and then a lot of the furniture is its own thing as well. And they're separate, and I've added them together in Photoshop to make this map. So this is their ship. They spent a lot of time on it, so I figured they may as well have a map for it. Especially because there are encounters and stuff that happen on the ship, which is really cool. They called it the Halcyon, but it's basically the Millennium Falcon. And this symbol here, their group is called the Void Ghosts. So I made a little logo for them, and I'm really proud of it. I think it looks really cool, and it suits the style of their group very well. But yeah, they have their ship. You can see the players on the ship. This is from the last time that they were on the ship. We haven't used it too much since the last. I mean, they did a lot of travel, but they haven't done a lot of stuff on the ship. And they also have they installed like a docking bay on it, so they have like a snow speeder that they found that I didn't intend for them to take, but they did. Because I didn't think that through. So they have a snow speeder that they haven't used, which is hilarious. And they have the ship. They've got like a med bay that they've created with an oil bath for their droid, because their droid doesn't, he's not healed by medicine. He's healed by, robot stuff. The stuff with nanites. And then, you have all these players. And they each have their own rooms and stuff, and like I said, things happen on the ship. But this is just one aspect of this game, right? So on this stuff, I have a lot of maps that I've created. So like I created a overview map, a hub world map, you might want to call it, for Ord Mantell, but I also created one. This is the most recent one. You can see the players are actually currently on this one. This is the Nar Shaddaa map. And when I said the Lords of Nal Hutta book is coming, we use the Nar Shaddaa stuff in there, which is really nice. So like, this is official stuff. Like, there is a Corellian sector on Nar Shaddaa. There is an Old Duros sector. The Corellian sector is kind of more of the high class. I mean, none of Nar Shaddaa is high class, let's be honest. It's more of the rich sector. The Undercity is more of like where all the poor people are. People who are addicted to spice, which is a drug within the Star Wars universe. The red light sector is kind of like, it's very Shadowrunny. If you've ever seen any Cyberpunk or played Shadowrun, it's where they're getting like their illegal cybernetic implants at. And then there's a couple other sectors as well. So it's pretty cool. This is the overview map I made to show them, like, this is kind of how the city is. It's huge. This is like the size of North America, right? Like, this is a big area on this moon of Nar Shaddaa, which is in orbit around Hutta. And then we used maps to alter that kind of stuff. So like, where is it? So they have this casino that they were at when they were using the map for that. So like, they have maps for this stuff, and I do like a Nar Shaddaa reference. So I show them, this is what you can, like, this is Nar Shaddaa. There's some art here from SWTOR. There's some screenshots from SWTOR, so it's a good reference because it's a recent thing. But then there's also just general Nar Shaddaa art. So that works out really well. So that's kind of the stuff that I do. But for the series, we're going to scale down the mapping a bit. And generally, the maps will only be for encounters. And this one here is the... it's probably my favorite map I've made thus far. So this stuff involved a lot of puzzles. And this was on Korriban. And just to give a quick story background, not to go too deep into it, because we'll do that in the future. Basically, they were towards the end of a story arc. They had just gotten to the end of a story arc, and they found out like one of these big bad guys were going to Korriban and were doing some creepy stuff there. So they decided to go investigate, because their bad guy just kind of like up and left what they were doing. So they left their camp and everything, and they came here to discover it on Korriban, which is an abandoned planet at this point, but is an ancient Sith planet. And you see, like, they come in at Korriban, and they come into this ancient Sith tomb, and there were these puzzles that they had to figure out. So like, it all involved, and this stuff here, this writing, I'm the only one that can see that as a GM. It's on the GM layer. The players can't actually see that, which is really cool. But each of these rooms involved a puzzle, and figuring out the puzzles for that room. And they eventually got through it because they figured it out. It all had to do with the Sith code. The peace is a lie. There's only passion. Through passion, I gain strength. Through strength, I gain power. Through power, I gain victory. Through victory, my chains are broken. The force shall set me free. I think that's the full thing. I don't have it all written on the map, and I don't even remember most of it. But I think that's what it was. So each puzzle had to do with a bit of that code. But basically, they work their way through, and this is kind of more of a dungeon crawl map. You would expect this in D&D. But because we're using Roll20 and we have a premium subscription, I use the dynamic lighting, and I've set this all up. So, like, if you see here, the lighting changes based on where Doc is. So he can see very specific stuff, which means, like, he has no idea that Wax is in this other room. But if he came across Wax, which is his droid, he would be like, oh, hey, there you are at the end of the hallway. And that's how that all works. Which is really cool. So I set that up for dungeon crawls in particular. So that's what they see at any given time, and that's what you guys will see during these dungeon crawls, but from more of like a spectator perspective, which is really cool. You won't get like all this white stuff on the edges. So yeah, they get through this entire thing. It took pretty much an entire session to go through this because there was encounters. There's like force ghosts in this room here that they couldn't deal with, so they had to shoot the crystal in the middle room. They figure that out, which killed the Force Ghosts. And then they finally get to the end where an ancient, like, Sith Lord Force Ghosts attack them. And it was interesting because it's like, it was dwindled in power, and these aren't very high-level characters. I say high-level, but there really are no levels in this system. There's just kind of like power level. It was dwindled in power, so they were able to defeat it, but they defeated it while it was doing an attack against one of their members, and it has kind of attached itself to the group, and it's been following them around, haunting them, and we're kind of get a little bit of a resolution coming up here soon on all of that, which is really cool. And I like having a constant like weird thing happening in the story underneath everything else, so they're having to manage like several layers of the plot at any given time. And I like that. I think that's a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys will like that in the storytelling of it. But yeah, they finished this, but this was one of my favorite maps that I've made thus far. One of my, the ones that I've had the most fun with. But yeah, you can expect battle maps such as this. And again, you know, they're seeing this kind of stuff where I can move them around, they can move themselves around, but they're getting a limited perspective. And if you want to see what kind of stuff goes into this, the lighting on this, if I go to the dynamic lighting level, you'll see I actually have to create boxes and stuff for this kind of stuff. And when I have doors, like I will, for instance, let's just polygon line, and then I usually do doors as red from a GMing perspective because it makes it easier to figure out. So I make a line, and then I can go back to objects, and you see, whoops. If I go select tool, sorry, and then I go to his lighting, suddenly that door is closed off, and he can't get through it because it blocks him, which is really cool. So there's a little bit of prep that goes into a dungeon crawl like this, but I think it's really cool, and I think it makes the series inevitably way more watchable because you're getting the perspective of the players, so you kind of are in the tense moments with them as opposed to seeing all the craziness that actually is there. Right. So with that, I have several other maps. Don't want to go to the end. That's spoilers. That's some spoilers for this weekend for the players. Hopefully they don't watch this. Yeah, I saw that. You guys were spoiling yourselves. I got it. But I wanted to get into the characters themselves. So I'm going to have to find an artist to do character art and art for us in the future. But I do want to show you like how this all works, right? Because you have these characters, and I want to do a brief overview of the dice. But in order to do that, we need to look at this dice. What is this stuff in this chat panel? Let me close his character thing real quick. Like, what is all this? Let's be honest. So let's kind of go over it. You have 6-sided dice, 8-sided dice, and 12-sided dice. And really, that's all you use for Star Wars. There is a couple other ones like percentile dice, but we don't use that for this system because it does it automatically for us because Roll20 is amazing. I should also mention that in order to use this stuff that we're using, these dice rolls, because normally, like if I did like roll 1d20, I can roll a d20, and you see I got an 18. So that's cool, but this stuff it's using specific dice. So there are no D20s in this. There's D6, D8, and D12. So if I go to his dice, the left side of this dice pool are good dice, and the right side are bad dice. And I'll explain this way more in depth in the future with like a proper, this is how this system works, so you guys are prepared when we actually get into the series. But this dice right here, this teal one, is a 6-sided dice. It's called a boost dice. Then you have ability, which is D8, and proficiency, which is D12. We're going to forget about these 2 dice, the black one and the blue one, but they're counterparts, just like the green and the purple are counterparts, and the red and the yellow are counterparts. So the ability dice is like how good you are at something, or how capable you are at something. Like, can you jump over a rock? Well, then you add a green dice. Yes, I am 1 green dice. I'm 1 ability dice, able to jump over a rock. But did you train in jumping over a rock? Well, then you add a yellow dice instead of a green dice. Or say you had 2 green dice, you were too good, and then you trained. Well, you upgrade one, which you can use the upgrade system, but for visual effect, let's say you upgrade one of the ability dice to proficiency dice. So this is like how you can do something. This is how well you can do it. Likewise, purple dice is the difficulty of something, how difficult it is to do it. And then the red dice is the challenge dice. How challenging is it? How even more difficult is it? And on each of these dice have special symbols. So you see the little explosions here. That's a success, whereas the triangle, the like dark side symbol from SWTOR, and in fact most of the Bioware games, that's a failure. So let's say we rolled a green dice and a purple dice, and we got a one like that, because the purple dice and the green dice and all this can have like 2 of 1 on it. So you can see like the red dice has the 2 failures, whereas the purple has the 1. Well, the purple also has 2 failures that it can roll, or it can roll like a disadvantage. We'll get into that in a second, and then a failure. So like there's different sides on the dice that roll different stuff. And remember, these are just D8s, and this is a D12. And there's some blank sides, as you can see here. So what you do is you roll your good dice and your bad dice together. That's your dice pool. And if you get a success, then you succeed on whatever it is, as long as you have a success. But the problem is success and failures cancel each other out. So in a net positive, you need at least 1 success. So like this would be a failed roll. That's a complicated roll. I'll get to that in a minute. This is actually a success, but something really bad happens too. And then this is a success, but also something bad happens. So let me describe. This dice system is all about interpreting the dice. So you have the success symbol, the explosion, the failure, which is the little triangle. Then you have this winged like little thing that's on the good dice. That's advantage. That means like you might be able to do something quicker, or maybe you get additional information out of somebody if you succeed, or maybe you fail but you get an advantage. So like maybe you can recover a stat that, like strain. I'll get to what strain is in, but you can like maybe do something. You may have failed, but you didn't fail spectacularly. So the advantage helps with that. Whereas the disadvantage, so this is advantage, this is disadvantage. I can spend disadvantage to like cause them strain damage, or make something take longer, or have something a little bit more precarious. So in this case, we can also see this symbol, which is a triumph. That is it's like a critical success, and then this symbol, which is a critical fail. So it's really interesting how this all works, because in this case, the person critically succeeded his charm roll, but he also got a ton of disadvantage on it. So I can interpret this disadvantage the way I want, but he's going to critically succeed. So he may charm the person, but maybe the people around the person that he charmed, aren't too happy with that. They see that the person got charmed, and are like, hey man, wait, whoa, before you like just go being charmed by this guy, think of what's actually happening here. And the person's like, no, because he critically succeeded. He did charm the guy. So maybe all of a sudden they go into combat and they attack, the guy's buddies attack, but the guy he charmed is now on their side. So it's like an interesting way to handle that. That's just a random example I came up with in my head. So that's how that works. And then you have the blue dice and the black dice, which have the same symbols on it. Only the yellow and the red have the triumph and the despair. But the black and blue just have the same symbols, just less of them. So all of this is derived, like how do you create a dice pool? All of this is derived from your characteristics and your skills. So let's just forget the destiny pool for a second and the dice pool, sure. Let's just focus on the characteristics. So you have brawn, which is strength, basically. How like strong you are, or how much you can like lift something or bend something or hurt something. Agility is it's agility, but it also affects like how well you can shoot certain weapons. Intellect is intellect. Cunning. Willpower, again, is kind of willpower. And then presence is more for how imposing you are or how good of a leader you are and that kind of stuff. So those are your characteristics, your stats, and that affects a lot of this stuff, which is your skills. So for every stat you have, this is the best example I can show you. So charm is one of his things that he's good at. So you see the 2 yellow dice and the green dice in his dice pool. So if he rolled a charm roll, you'll see he rolled 2 successes and a triumph. So that's actually a really good thing, but he didn't have any bad dice in there. So how does this actually happen? Well, for every stat you get, so for every stat you have in a specific thing, so charm is presence, he has 3 presence, so he gets 3 green dice. But he is trained in charm, so he gets 2 yellow dice with it. So for every rank of training you have, you upgrade the dice. Vice versa as well. He only has 1 brawn, but let's say he trained in athletics. It basically takes any overlap. So he has 5 in that. Don't worry, I'll fix this thing so it's not broken. But he has 5 in this, training wise. But he has 1 brawn, which means he gets the 5 dice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But because there is the 1 overlap between the brawn and the athletics, it's upgraded 1 of the dice to yellow. So that's how that works. So as you can see, his stats, I'll just go through all these. And now that I've explained that, this will go a lot faster. But I'll just kind of like let you see his stuff. He's really bad at shooting. We make fun of him when he shoots, but he's really smart. He's our force user, and which is why he has force rating. So before I move on from this page, you also have wounds, which is like your HP. We count down rather than count up like the system suggests. And that is because if I go to Doc here on the map, you'll see he has a green bar and a blue bar above his little character thing. And the way that the players see it, they also see his bars. So they don't see the enemy ones, but they can see his. So like if he starts taking damage, you can see, oh, his health bar goes down. So it makes a lot more sense in the end. Strain is kind of like if you fail at something, or if something is really stressful, you take strain damage, or if you get shot by a stun weapon, you take strain damage. And then soak is how much your armor is soaking of the damage. So if you get shot for 6 and he takes 6 damage, he absorbs 3 of that damage. So he would only take 3 damage, right? I think that makes sense for most people who's ever played an RPG. So then you have defense, which makes it more difficult. So for every defense an enemy has, so like if I have an NPC attacking Doc, it would add 2 black dice. So that's equal to his defense. Whereas then in order to assemble the dice pool, let's say the person that is attacking Doc is mediocre at shooting, so he gets the 2 like green dice. He's not a good shooter, but he's also from quite a range away, and then that adds the difficulty. And there's like certain range bands, and again, I'm not going to go too deep into this because I'll have a huge video on this, but basically that's how that works. So this is the difficulty of it. This is how much armor the character has, and this is like if the person was attacking, would he hit him? He did succeed, but maybe his gun jams, or he ran out of ammo because of all the disadvantage. So that's how you interpret that kind of thing. So let's real quick look at the other characters. We have Wax, which is our droid. He's a technician. Oh, I should say Doc is a colonist, though he may switch to a force-using class in the future. Wax is our technician. He can kind of build droids and stuff, which is really cool, or modify weapons. His characteristics are 2 brawn, 3 agility, 3 intellect, 2 cunning, 1 willpower, 1 presence. And here's his skills. And this is going to be important because when we talk about the characters with the players, we're not going to talk about a lot of this stuff because this stuff's going to change by the time the series is out. So Alask, our pilot, 2 brawn, 4 agility, 2 intellect, 4 cunning, 2 willpower, 3 presence. And he's our pilot, so he's got like space, piloting. He's also really good at shooting. He's kind of more of a gunslinger, and he's a smuggler, a scoundrel specialization. Then we have Cookie, which is our Wookiee. He's a hired gun. That's his class, and he is more of our tank. So he has a lot of brawn, not too much agility, not too much intellect. So he's not very smart, but he is really strong, and he's also quite good at shooting as well. Then finally we have Gand, our bounty hunter. He's kind of more well-rounded, but 3 brawn, 5 agility, 2 intellect, 3 cunning, 3 willpower, 1 presence. He has a lot of spiritual stuff going on because of his race's religion, and I find that really interesting, but it creates for some fun character stuff. But he is a bounty hunter, survivalist. Interesting, nonetheless. We'll talk about all of this stuff as we get more in-depth on the system, but one thing I wanted to show you guys is 40 wound threshold. Like 40 HP is not average for a Star Wars character. In fact, 10 soak is a lot. And, 10 threshold for your strain, that's pretty normal. The reason our wound threshold and our soak are so high is because we have so many players. What we've decided to do, and the way I've balanced this, is in combat, if I want to put them against like odds that seem realistic but are overwhelming, but aren't going to kill them, we needed to increase their health and we needed to increase their soak. So there's 2 ways to go about it. You either give them a ton of soak, which means the damage they take is then reduced, but then the damage that gets through is really vital. Maybe they only have 10 wound threshold. Well, then if they take, if they have 10 soak and they take 12 damage, suddenly they've taken 20% of their HP, whereas they would have just straight up died without the soak. So we've kind of gone both ways with it. We've given them a lot of soak and a lot of wound threshold, which means I can throw strong and a lot of enemies at them if I need to, or different kinds of enemies that are really powerful, like a Force Ghost. But at the same time, not necessarily just kill them outright, something that will kill them outright, because we want it to be an epic Star Wars story, and we want the odds to seem not in their favor, but where they squeak by. And the way we've balanced that is by giving them more HP and more soak. So how have I done that? Well, I've done it by giving them specific items that I've created. So, for instance, Doc, he has these Force User robes, so it has a special effect on it. So the price on it, I actually changed that. This is not an accurate updated sheet, but he gets 2 Force rating, which is something for Force casters and stuff. And he gets 10 wound threshold. So he just straight up gets 10 HP from using this, which technically doesn't make sense because he's not actually gaining XP by wearing this powerful item, but let's say he does. And then he gains his 3 soak and his 1 intellect. So on some of these really powerful items, which I hand out very sparingly, they actually sometimes gain a stat, which helps upgrade their character. So that's how that works. Additionally, if we look at... what's a good example? I think Gand has a flamethrower that I've given him, which is also, it's a powerful weapon, but it has its own little stuff. So I've made a lot of this stuff to seem really fun and cool, and to give the players rewards like they would find in a D&D universe, which kind of keeps their interest going, but it also keeps the power level, I can curve them out so they're all kind of roughly the same power level by giving them very specific items, which I find really fun. So like the Smuggler's Jacket, for instance, 12 wound threshold, so it's different for each character just to kind of balance them out. If you're a ranged character, you're not going to have as much HP as Cookie that gains a freaking ton of HP off of his one thing. Plus he has a lot of HP because he's a strong character. So that's the way we've kind of gone about that. That may change a bit between now and when we actually launch the series, and they'll have more powerful items. They'll have different items, I'm sure. and things will be different. But I wanted to give you an idea of the characters now before we introduce them in the near future on the video. So with that in mind, make sure you watch that video because you'll be introduced to the players. I'm actually going to talk to the players, make a video about it. So you'll be able to hear them and talk, and listen to the questions that I ask them. And then in that video, I would like you guys to ask them questions, and we'll get back to that in a future video. Additionally, we have our Patreon we just launched. If you want to support us, literally anything helps make this actually a possibility. Again, we need cameras and microphones and stuff, and that stuff is really expensive. And then finally, we have our video going up that I will be making of the books that Force Fantasy Flight has sent us. And I'm really excited about that because, one, I get new books. They're so cool. But two, I want to show them that you guys have the interest in this stuff. So please go and watch that and show your support for that. But with all that being said, I can't wait for the next couple videos, which will come out real soon. And we shall see you guys next time.